Hello out there in Nala land. Today, Mirza Shem Parshat Va'era, which I erroneously last week started by mistake. I'm sorry about that. Today's shiur is Lila Nishas Rachalea Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi, Alela Shalom. We begin Va'era with our summary, and then we'll go into some of the details of the psukim. One more time, pardon my repetition of some time from last week, God reveals himself to Moshe as the one who promises to the patriarchs that now will be fulfilled. I promised Aharon, Yitzchak, Yaakov that I'm going to redeem them from the land of bondage and take them to the promised land. The Jewish people, they're crushed in their spirit. They see that Moshe seems to be making only trouble, not making things better. They don't want to listen to Moshe when he delivered God's message. This frightened Moshe, for he wondered, how would the great Pharaoh listen to him if his own brother will not listen to him? Especially when Moshe's speech was impaired. So, God assures him, don't worry, Aharon will be your spokesman, he's going to help you out, and Pharaoh will refuse to let the Jews out until he's inflicted severe punishment upon the Egyptian people. At this time, Moshe is 80 years old, Aharon is 83 years old, when they set forth to carry out their mission. And they know that the only way they're going to get Pharaoh to be impressed is with doing some wondrous manifestation. So Aharon casts down his rod before the Egyptian leader. It turns into a serpent. When the Egyptians are able to duplicate the feat, then it's Aaron's rod who's able to swallow all the other rods of the Egyptians, but Pharaoh is not impressed. It's just a bunch of magic work. So yours is a little better than mine, but magic is magic, and this is not any reason for me to let the Jews out of Mitzrayim. So the first plague is then brought upon Egypt. And after warning Pharaoh of what was to happen, Aharon follows Moshe's instructions and waves his rod over all the Nile River and its waters, its canals, its reservoirs, and everything becomes blood. Even water that's not in the river turns into blood. Everything is blood in Egypt. All the cups of water turn into blood. The fish die. It's an unbelievable farstunk. It's odorific. It's malodorous. It's redolent. And the Egyptians, which are faced with a lack of water, were forced to beseech the Jews for some. Now, the miracle had no effect upon the water of the Jews. The plague continues for 7 days, like all the other miracles, all the other plagues were 7 days. And this miracle, again, is duplicated by Egyptian magicians. And Pharaoh maintains his ridiculously stubborn attitude. His heart is hardened. He doesn't listen. Consequently, the Pharaoh ignores the threat of the plagues of the frogs, and once again, Aharon stretches his hand over the Nile River, and the frogs are swarmed over the land. Pharaoh pleads that to stop the effect of the plagues, he's going to reciprocate by allowing the people to leave to sacrifice to Hashem. But as soon as Moshe prays to God, the plague ceases. And then once again, Pharaoh consistently and steadfastly refuses to fulfill his promise. Then, what does Aharon do? He strikes the dust with his rod, and the dust turns into lice, which swarms over man and over the beasts of Mitzrayim. And this is the first time that the Egyptian magicians cannot duplicate this miracle. They can't duplicate this, they have no power, and they have to admit the superiority of God's will. This is the finger of God. And still, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, and he will not let the Jews out. Moshe then warns Pharaoh that the swarms of wild animals will invade the homes of the Egyptians. But the land of Goshen, where the Jews lived, is going to be unaffected. And Pharaoh still remains obstinate. However, the devastation caused by this fourth plague forces him to agree to let the Israelites go out and sacrifice to God in the land of Egypt. Moshe, though, demands them to be allowed to journey for 3 days into the wilderness to offer sacrifices, because he doesn't want them to stay in Egypt proper. Let's go out to the wilderness where they will not be harassed by the Egyptians. Pharaoh yields, but as soon as the plague is halted, he again refuses to let the Jews go out. At that point, Moshe warns them that there's going to be a cattle plague that's going to devastate Egypt. And once again, this will be spared those inhabitants of Goshen, the Jewish people, but everywhere else in Egypt they will be suffering from this cattle plague, and Pharaoh will not capitulate. Pharaoh refuses to budge, and it hits with the full fury. And all the Egyptian cattle die, but where the Jewish cattle are, they're not harmed. And still, believe it or not, Pharaoh is unmoved. Next, Moshe takes sprinkles of ashes towards the heavens in Pharaoh's presence The ashes turn to dust and cause this terrible epidemic of painful boils. It's not deadly, but it's extremely painful, and erupts among animals and people alike. Likewise, Pharaoh's magicians are affected by this, and still Pharaoh cannot change his mind. Pharaoh then was told that if he doesn't relent, they'll be hit by a torrent of hail, which is going to cause calamity among all the crops and the remaining cattle. So he's advised to shelter both people and animals to save them from the death. Some of the Egyptians heeded the warning, and they shielded themselves and their cattle. Then Moshe stretches forth his staff towards the heavens, and there's a storm of thunder and lightning, and hail rages over all of Egypt, except over Goshen. It's a fire and water, this oxymoronic, cacophonous combination of fire and water coming together, two antithetical things which unite.